America has the postcard version, and then it has the map errors. We all know the Grand Canyon and the Statue of Liberty. That is the version of the country you see in brochures. But we are looking for the places that don't make sense. A town with only one resident. A neighborhood cut off from the country by a straight line. A place where you can look across the water and literally see tomorrow. No conspiracies, just real geography doing weird things. From map errors that trapped entire towns to geological anomalies that break the rules of nature. Here are 15 places in the United States that feel like they shouldn't exist, but do. 1. The one-person town, Monowi, Nebraska. Let's start in the middle of nowhere. Nebraska. There is a town here called Monowi that is technically a ghost town, except for one stubborn soul. Her name is Ellis Island. She is the mayor. She is the secretary. She is the treasurer. She is the librarian. And she is the bartender at the only business in town, the Monowi Tavern. Decades ago, this was a farming community. But the train stopped running, families moved away, and eventually, it was just Elsie and her husband left. When he passed away in 2004, Elsie didn't leave. She just took over everything. She grants her own liquor license. She collects taxes from herself to keep the town's 3 street lights turned on. And here is the best part. Every year, she is required by law to post a notice for the mayoral election. She posts it in her bar, votes for herself, and wins by a landslide. It sounds like a joke, but it's the only way to keep Monowi on the map. If she leaves, the municipality dissolves. It is a town of one, held together by sheer willpower. 2. Africa is right around the corner, Maine. If that was a demographic anomaly, this next one is a geometric one. Okay, pull up a mental map of the world. If you wanted to swim from the United States to Africa, where would you start? You'd probably go to Florida, right? It's the furthest south, so it feels like the closest jump. Wrong. Because the Earth is a sphere and not a flat rectangle, geometry gets weird. The Great Circle route means the straightest line across the ocean actually curves north. If you measure it on a globe, a specific peninsula in Maine, Quoddy Head, is actually closer to the African coast than Miami is. We are talking about a difference of hundreds of miles. It defies every instinct you have looking at a standard flat map, but the math doesn't lie. The shortest road to the Sahara starts in New England. 3. The Point Roberts Glitch, Washington. Speaking of map lines that don't make sense, imagine having to cross an international border just to buy milk. Welcome to Point Roberts, Washington. This is a piece of American soil that is completely divorced from the rest of the country. It hangs off the bottom of Canada's Vancouver area. Here is why this exists: a ruler and a pen. When the border was drawn as a straight line across the 49th parallel in 1846, the map makers didn't realize they were slicing off the tip of this peninsula. If you live here and want to go to a US hospital or a US school, or just drive to Seattle, you have to drive north into Canada, go through customs, drive 25 miles, and then cross back into the US. During the global shutdowns a few years ago, this place was incredibly isolated. Residents were effectively stuck in a 5-square-mile bubble. It is a logistical nightmare created by a simple, straight-line border drawn over 150 years ago. 4. The desert in the rainforest, Sequim, Washington. But sometimes nature creates its own borders. Washington State is famous for 2 things: vampires and endless rain. The Olympic Peninsula is home to one of the only temperate rainforests in the world. But right in the middle of this wet, mossy landscape, there is a climate anomaly called Sequim. Sequim sits in something called a rain shadow. Because the Olympic mountains are so tall, they block the rain clouds coming off the ocean. The clouds dump all their water on the west side of the mountain, leaving Sequim on the east side completely dry. It gets way more sunshine than Seattle. It is so dry that people here grow lavender farms and cactus gardens. You can drive 20 minutes from a dense rainforest and end up in a dusty field that looks like Arizona. It is an impossible microclimate where a mountain created its own private weather system. 5. The Underground Fire, Centralia, Pennsylvania. That was a natural anomaly. This next one is a man-made mess. There is a town in Pennsylvania that has been slowly erased from the map. Beneath the town of Centralia, a massive coal mine fire has been burning since Memorial Day weekend, 1962. It started as a routine trash burn at the local landfill, but the fire slipped through a crack in the earth and ignited a massive coal vein that runs under the entire town. In the 1980s, the ground began to crack open. Steam and unsafe air began to rise from the earth. The ground became so hot, it damaged cars driving over it. The government condemned the town, revoked the zip code, and relocated almost everyone for their safety. But the fire didn't stop. Experts say there is enough coal down there to keep burning for another 250 years. If you go there today, you will find empty streets where houses used to be, nature taking over, and steam still curling up from the ground. It is a ghost town, kept warm by an underground fire. 6. The Reno Paradox, Nevada versus California. Now let's test your mental map again. I want you to pause the video for a second. In your head, picture Los Angeles and Reno, Nevada. Which one is further west? It feels obvious. California is the coast, Nevada is inland. So Los Angeles must be west. But your mental map is lying to you. The coastline of California doesn't go straight down. It curves aggressively inward as it goes south. Because of this massive curve, the desert city of Reno is actually farther west than the beach city of Los Angeles. In fact, Reno is farther west than San Diego too. It breaks your brain to look at it on a map, but the inland city is the western one. 7. The exile town, Ewing, Virginia. Speaking of states that are shaped weirdly, states like Colorado are nice, neat squares. Virginia is a mess. Virginia stretches so far to the west that it creates a bizarre situation for the town of Ewing. If you live in Ewing, you are a Virginian. You pay Virginia taxes, but you are in geographical exile. Because of the mountain ranges and the shape of the state, you are closer to the state capital of Kentucky than your own capital. You are closer to the capital of Tennessee. You are closer to North Carolina's capital. In fact, you are closer to multiple neighboring state capitals than you are to Richmond, Virginia. Driving to your own governor's mansion can take hours longer than driving to almost any other major city in the region. It begs the question, at what point should a town just admit it belongs to someone else? 8. The highest and lowest, Whitney and Badwater, California. Usually, to get from the highest mountains to the lowest deserts, you have to cross a continent. In California, you can do it on a single tank of gas. Mount Whitney is the highest point in the contiguous United States. A jagged, frozen alpine peak towering at 14,500 feet. Badwater Basin in Death Valley is the lowest point in North America, a salt flat sitting 282 feet below sea level. They are less than 100 miles apart as the crow flies. That means in a single afternoon, you can go from needing a winter coat in the snow to risking heat exhaustion in the desert. It is a topographical error where the Earth folded in on itself, placing the roof and the basement of America right next door to each other. Quick checkpoint. If you're still here, you're officially immune to normal maps, but the next 3 are pure border chaos. 9. The Kentucky Bubble, Kentucky Bend. Look at the southwest corner of Kentucky. There is a weird bubble of land that is completely cut off from the rest of the state. This is the Kentucky Bend. It exists because the Mississippi River meanders like crazy. When the borders were originally drawn based on the river's path, this loop was included in Kentucky. But geology doesn't care about politics. The river shifted, helped along by massive earthquakes in 1812, and the borderlines froze in place. Today, this is an island of Kentucky entirely surrounded by Missouri and Tennessee. To go to school, vote, or just leave your house, you have to drive into Tennessee. It is a logistical nightmare for the handful of people who live there. 10. South to Canada, Detroit, Michigan. Here is another compass trick. Okay, quick quiz. If I gave you a compass and told you to point to Canada, which way would you point? North, right? Not in Detroit. Detroit is the only major US city where you have to look south to see Canada. If you stand on the Riverwalk in downtown Detroit, and watch the sunset over the skyline across the water, you are looking at Windsor, Ontario. And you are looking south. It's a weird quirk of the Detroit River, which curls around the distinct thumb of Michigan, placing the US above Canada for a brief, confusing moment. 11. The divided island, Ellis Island. Sometimes the borders aren't just confusing, they are a legal battlefield. Is Ellis Island in New York or New Jersey? The answer is yes. For decades, the two states fought over this. It got so heated that the Supreme Court had to intervene in 1998. Their ruling created one of the weirdest borders in the world. The court decided that the original natural island belongs to New York, but all the land that was added artificially over the years belongs to New Jersey. Since the island was expanded hugely to build the immigration center, the border is a mess. It literally cuts through the buildings. You can be standing in the Great Hall in New York, walk down a hallway, and cross an invisible line into New Jersey. If you break a rule in the gift shop, it's New York's problem. If you do it in the bathroom, you might be dealing with New Jersey laws. 12. The American Chimney, Northwest Angle, Minnesota. Remember Point Roberts? Well, Minnesota has an even bigger version. Look at the top of the state. There is a random tab of land sticking up into Canada. This is the Northwest Angle. This wasn't a strategic military move, it was a mistake. Back in 1783, when Ben Franklin was negotiating the Treaty of Paris, they used a map that was wrong. The map showed the Mississippi River starting way further north than it actually does. They drew the border to connect to the river, but the river wasn't there. The result? A chunk of America stranded in the Lake of the Woods. To drive to the rest of America, residents have to drive 60 miles through Canada. In the winter, they build an ice road across the frozen lake just to avoid customs. A bad map from the 1700s trapped a town forever. We are almost to the end, but the last two are the wildest. One is a city hidden underground, and the other breaks the laws of time. 13. The Secret Abyss, Hell's Canyon. When you think of big holes in the ground, you think of the Grand Canyon. But nestled on the border of Oregon and Idaho is a gorge that puts it to shame. Hell's Canyon is America's best kept secret. By some measurements, it is actually deeper than the Grand Canyon, plunging down nearly 8,000 feet at its lowest point. It is a massive, dark abyss carved by the Snake River, yet it gets almost no tourists compared to its famous cousin. There are no massive highways leading to the rim. It is wild, remote, and intimidating. It feels like a level in a video game that the developers forgot to finish connecting to the main map. 14. The Vertical City, Whittier, Alaska. From a hidden canyon to a hidden city. Imagine living your entire life without opening the front door. You wake up, take an elevator to work, take an elevator to the grocery store, take an elevator to church, and go back to bed. This is daily life in Whittier, Alaska. Almost the entire population of the town lives inside a single 14-story building called Begich Towers. Why? Because the weather outside is extreme. Winds here can hit 60 miles per hour, and snow buries everything. So the town moved inside to stay safe. But the craziest part is getting there. To enter Whittier, you have to drive through a 2.5-mile-long tunnel carved through a mountain. It is a one-way tunnel that is also a train track. You have to drive on the tracks. And here is the catch. The tunnel closes overnight. If you miss the schedule, you are locked out in the Alaskan cold until morning. 15. The Time Travel Island, Little Diomede. We end at the literal edge of the world. In the middle of the Bering Strait, between Alaska and Russia, lie two small islands. They are only 2.4 miles apart. You can easily see one from the other. One is Little Diomede, USA. The other is Big Diomede, Russia. But running directly between them is the international date line. This creates a mind-bending phenomenon. Even though they are a short boat ride apart, Big Diomede is about 21 hours ahead of Little Diomede. If you stand on the American side on a Tuesday afternoon, you can look across the water and watch the Russians living in Wednesday afternoon. In the winter, when the ocean freezes, it looks like you could walk across the ice and step into tomorrow. Though I wouldn't recommend it. It is illegal and the currents are dangerous. It is the closest thing to time travel you can see with your own eyes. These are the glitches on the map, but there are plenty more where that came from. Pause for a second and comment 1 to 15 below. Which one of these messed with your brain the most? I'm curious which one wins. If you want to see more places your brain refuses to believe are real, hit that subscribe button. I'll see you in the next one.